Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan, and here we do all things spooky, whether that be reading your scary stories like I'm doing today, telling my own stories, talking about scary books, scary movies, folklore, all that stuff. So if that sounds fun to you, I would love to have you here. Please check out the description below. You will find out where to send your scary stories in for me to read. You'll also find my other social media links and podcast episode links, so please check that out. And without further ado, let's get into these stories. My foot is the kind of asleep at this moment where I can't feel my whole leg. So I'm just here. I'm weirdly positioned because I legitimately can't move. I hate it when my feet fall asleep. This takes place in 2021 when I was around 14 to 15. At the time, I was at a friend's house spending the night and had woken up at around 2:30 or 3 in the morning because it felt like something was watching me. I glanced around the room but didn't see anything. My friend was still asleep, so I just shrugged it off and went on my phone. After about maybe 15 or so minutes, I hear what sounds like shuffling footsteps. So I look up, and what I saw is now burned into my brain. I saw someone, well, more like something that looked like me. The only difference was that it looked more rotted or decomposed. It was like I was staring at my own rotting corpse. This thing giggled when I saw it, and its giggle sounded like kind of glitchy. It was like there was this deeper voice giggling. They were giggling at the same time as my voice. It lasted only a few seconds, and then it vanished. Both me and my friend checked it out in the next morning, but there wasn't any signs of a break-in or anything. It's been a couple years, but I haven't seen the thing again. To be honest, I think it's back. Sometimes when I'm in my bathroom kind of late at night, I'll catch a quick glimpse of her in the mirror. Then it's gone and stuff like that, but I really hope it's just the stress of final season coming up that's causing this. I'd love to know what you think. So, and I'm not saying this is what that story is, but this is what happened to me. I had something follow me my entire life that she kind of looked like me. She was like a girl, but I watched her grow. Like, she consistently just looked my same age. And I wholeheartedly believe she was a manifestation of trauma. So I don't know if anything happened to you that would manifest into trauma and kind of create another version of you that doesn't look quite right. And I think that's like the negative energy and trauma manifesting in a physical way. So I'm not saying that's what happened to you. That is what happened to me, and it kind of sounds similar. Otherwise, I don't know. They always say it's never good if you see a mimic that looks like you, but it sounds like you've always seen her, so it's really interesting. Alright, next story. This was years ago, but when I was around 11, I went to stay at my aunt and uncle's for a week, and this was in northern Michigan. I live in the Appalachian Mountains now, but when I was there, I was going to sleep one night, and I heard voices from my dead grandfather when I was still fully awake. I got fully up and went to the living room because my aunt was still awake. I told her about it, and she said that was normal for her house. But then I see a white hand on the corner of my eye. I look over, and it was gone. She had me in tears because it was very close to my leg. A little later that night, my aunt went to bed, and I was in the living room alone. I took a picture to show off my haircut I got the day of this happening. I see the figure of the man that has been messing with me all that night. I got a few stories on where I live now. Let me know if you want me to tell you them. Yes. Ooh. Alright, next story. This email will contain 2 stories of what I believe to be 2 different objects I've dealt with. When I was younger, I lived with my grandparents in a trailer house out in the country. No, this trailer wasn't a small one. My dad is 6'3", and his head wasn't visible from the inside looking through the window. This will be relevant a little bit into the story. Growing up, I always heard that the house was built on Native American burial grounds. Even now and again, we would hear some weird things happen. Doors would slam, things would move, nothing too freaky. Me and my siblings used to have to sleep in the living room. My other siblings slept on the couch while I slept on the floor. And one night I wake up and I feel like I'm being watched. I had my back turned towards the window, so I roll over not thinking anything of it. From the corner of my eye, I see something staring. I take a closer look, and I realized I saw it. It starts walking toward the front door. Remember how I told you the windows were up really high? Well, whatever this thing was, I could see the complete head of it. It looked like a huge dog or wolf with blood-red eyes, large canine teeth, with something wet dripping out of its mouth. All the way across the window, it stared at me for what seemed like forever. And then it disappeared for a moment. I thought it was all in my imagination. That was until I heard the doorknob on the front door being twisted. Whatever was looking at me through the window was trying to get in the house. I rolled back over, pulled the cover over my head, and tried to move closer to being under the window. I tried going back to sleep, and for a good few minutes, the jiggling of the door handle didn't stop. When it finally did, I felt like something was piercing into my back. That's how hard something was staring. For weeks, I had nightmares. No one believed that it happened. I still, to this day, get an uneasy feeling when I'm walking past windows when it's dark out. Even sometimes when it's daylight. Sometimes I can still feel its presence around me. The next story, okay, before we get into that, that could definitely be like the things in the woods because they can look like whatever they want. But you said it was, your house was on native burial grounds. Why am I thinking it's like one of the black dogs that guard cemeteries? I don't know why that's what I'm picking up, but it is. Now, this next story is a long one, so buckle up. I started living with my other grandparents at a young age as well. There would always be things happen. People seen sitting in the swings outside, always feeling like you're being watched, just stuff out of nightmares. Well, as I get older, it all kind of went away. This past year when I was still living there, me and my friends were door dashing for some extra cash. The lights in my car aren't the best, but they're good enough to see if something's in the middle of the road. Well, this night we didn't see anything until my car ran something over. We all agreed none of us saw anything in the road beforehand, so we brushed it off. Well, a few miles further down a road, one of my friends was messing around saying he'd get out of the car, so we told him to do it, and he did. I drove away before quickly returning. Mind you, this road was covered in trees. When I got back to him, he was breathing extremely heavy, and he wouldn't talk besides saying things like he was pissed off. After driving down the road and back to the town, we were working. He said he needed to use the restroom. I needed gas anyway, so we pulled up to a convenience store. When I got out, I tried talking to him, and earlier that morning he had told me about how he had come into contact with something. He finally loosened up and told me he was upset because of what he told me and still leaving him out there. He turned around and pulled his shirt up to show me 3 gashes, the middle being the deepest. They were brand new. We didn't talk about it for a while until my other friend fell asleep on the way home. I asked him what happened, and he said that whatever it was, whatever we ran over came back. He told me how he was walking and laughing about the joke when he heard whistling. He looked around him and didn't see anything, and he kept hearing whistling and whispering until finally he turned and saw a figure. He turned around and took off running towards my car, when all he hears are 3 loud steps and the feeling of stinging on his back. Whatever was out there had chased him and reached to cut his back. Well, I asked him if he just wanted to stay the night in my car because neither of us felt safe. The house he was living in was down a very dark and windy dirt road. He agreed, and we all got back to the house and we all went to bed. The next morning I went out to hang out with him and asked how he slept. He told me he didn't really sleep and that if he did, he kept a lighter in his chest. I always keep a lighter in my car due to those reasons. Well, he went out to tell me how my dog scared him while he was trying to sleep. I was really confused and asked him to explain. A little backstory: I own 7 dogs and I parked right next to the fence. They stay in when they're outside. Well, he went on to tell me that he was almost asleep when everything went extremely quiet. I live in the country, so that wasn't really normal, especially in the middle of spring. He said he got a really cold chill, then all of a sudden he heard a deep barking sound that sounded like it was right outside the car. Now that wouldn't be weird normally, but the thing is, the door for the dogs to go outside was always closed at night due to the rattlesnake incident. I got him all the dogs were inside, so whatever we hit and hurt my friend followed me home. For the next few nights, extremely weird things would happen. One night I came home and 2 dogs were outside, which isn't out of the norm. It looked like my basset hound and my husky bulldog mix. Well, I get inside and the door was closed, obviously. My basset hound was inside and I opened the door and the husky mix was the only one to come inside. The next morning I asked my grandma if she let the basset hound outside and back inside in the middle of the night. She denied doing it. So at this point, this thing's followed me home and it's now started mimicking my dogs. A few nights after this same thing happened, 2 dogs were outside the fence and I knew what was going on, so I didn't pay any mind to it. I calmly walked into my house where every single one of my 7 dogs were inside going crazy. So now it brought a friend. For months it stalked me and would appear at the most random times. It would play peekaboo with me on the drive home all the time. It ran across the road with me going 65 to 80 an hour all the time. I can't tell you how many times I almost crashed because of it. Finally, I moved out of that house, and I thought it would go away, but boy, was I wrong. In the middle of this past summer, me and my boyfriend would go swimming a lot. Sometimes his friends would come along as well. There was multiple people around, nothing would happen, but one night me and my boyfriend decided to go skinny dipping in the middle of the night at a nearby lake. Everything was going good. I was having a good time, until I wasn't. Let me preface this by explaining that my boyfriend does not believe in this type of stuff. From a child, he's always been the type that believes everything has a normal answer, like a door swinging out of nowhere, gust of wind. Now back to the point. The night we went skinny dipping, I had gone under the water for a minute, and as soon as I came back out, I heard something. I couldn't tell what it was. It sounded like a mixture between someone going past us extremely fast and someone whispering to me. As soon as that happened, I looked at my boyfriend and I told him we needed to go. He tried talking me out of it, and I told him, no, we need to go now. I had talked to him about this stuff before, and how you know not to say its name or do your best to pretend it's not there. So when we get to the car, I don't even put my clothes on because when I look back, I saw a tall, dark figure standing at the end of the parking lot where the dock was. I jumped in my car and started it, yelling at my boyfriend to get in the car. It took him a minute, but he finally did. To get out of where I parked, I had to reverse out of it and turn around. The place was also kind of heavily surrounded by trees. Well, as soon as I started to turn the car around, my headlights pointed to the trees, and whatever was at the end of the parking lot was now in the trees in front of us. I threw my car in drive as fast as I could and gassed it out of there because it had been months. Why was it still stalking and following? Right before the driveway to our house, there's a turn. I don't know if that thing called for backup or what, but I saw something crouching in the trees in front of us. My boyfriend, before we even reached the driveway, started to say, "Did you see that too?" Immediately, I knew I wasn't the only one. I wasn't going crazy because one of the most firm believers that those things don't exist just saw the same thing I did. The same thing that had been watching my every move for the past 5 to 6 months. He didn't even try denying what he saw. He did try to give it a humane and normal explanation. When we parked to get into the house, we quickly threw our clothes on and dashed into the front door. As soon as we walked into our room, I said, "Yes, I saw it. But what did you see?" He told me he saw the thing standing at the end of the parking lot and the trees around the corner. That's when I told him I saw something else in the trees at the lake. That night, we heard a lot of things like whining, like a cat outside the window, and a lot of other noises. The same night, my sister-in-law texted me and asked if I heard the screaming outside. Ever since, I always get an eerie feeling anytime I'm driving alone at night or when I'm outside alone, because I know it's still out there watching me. I feel its eyes on me all the time. That's always, like, the most alarming thing when you're with someone that doesn't really believe in that stuff and they experience it. Because you're like, okay, it's not in my head, I can't pretend. So that is the thing with these creatures, and it's what I've experienced as well. Once you give them the attention that they want, they latch onto you like a freaking leech. They do not leave you alone. It's been years since I ran from mine, and I still deal with stuff. It sucks so bad. And you're right, they will call for backup. Alright, next story. Grandfather passed around 5 years ago. He was a massive hoarder and a terrible person. He hated me since the moment his mother passed and left all of her money to me and my mother. When he found out that his mother had left all of her money to me and my mom, he tied my mom up and threatened to in front of her unless we transferred the money to him. Jesus Christ. He was a very selfish man, with money, random junk, his land, pretty much everything. He was sent to jail a little after my sister was born and was released after my brother was born. My mom had a restraining order on him once he was released from jail. He passed 6 months after he was released. No one found him for 3 months after he passed because no one went to visit him because he was such a sick man. Once he was passed, he was found dead with his cats eating him. He always had a thing for cats. He was a couldn't see when you walk into the house, you couldn't see the floor. We took out all of the valuable things from his house and put them in the basement of the house that me and my mom and her new husband and my 2 siblings lived in. Our laundry room was in our basement. I was going down the steps one day to grab some of the laundry when something grabbed my foot through the opening of the stairs and sort of slugged me onto the ground in the basement. I was terrified. Thank goodness there were clothes scattered on the floor to break my fall. I never went back into that basement until after we got rid of all his belongings. He was obsessed with money. Money from me and my mom would go missing. My stepfather and little sister's money never went missing, but me and my mom were constantly noticing our money was missing. We couldn't keep cash in the house anymore at all. My little brother was always mumbling something to me and my family. He was just 1 year old and couldn't really talk much, but he would always mumble at nothing. One day I caught the rocking chair in the living room rocking back and forth with no one else in the living room. He was laughing and pointing at the chair my little brother was, because he was in there. Everyone in the house passed it off as my brother being a baby, and he's just laughing, but I know it was something else. Once he passed, a random cat named Stella would find its way into the house constantly. She was obsessed with the basement. We decided we couldn't keep her because she was pregnant, but one day she had her baby, so we gave away the kittens and got rid of her. We got rid of his items and moved out a month after we removed his items. My mom showed me a picture of her father to my little brother a month or 2 ago. My brother is now 6. He says that he met him before. He has no way of knowing who my grandfather is. He wasn't even 1 year old at the time. It just terrifies me every time I think about it. I mean, I firmly believe that if your energy is that bad in life, it just spirals into a malevolent entity. I wholeheartedly believe that. All right, next story. I have a story time I'd love to talk to you about. So there's this creek near my house, and I would go down there almost every day. I never felt anything creepy, but in 2023, me and my friend went down there, and it was raining really hard. When we went down there for maybe 5 minutes until he started to whistle. I told him before not to whistle in the woods, but we were just chilling, laying there together on these picnic tables. I thought I heard my name being called by him, and I said, "What?" He said, "I didn't say anything." And then all we hear is this loud scream, and then something started screaming mine and his name. No one knew about us, so we made the bad decision of running out. It's a 10-minute walk, and we ran all the way back. The whole time we heard these loud stomps behind us. Keep in mind we went down there before with his friend, and they got chased out of the creek. There's another story I want to talk about. Me and my other friend went down there, and I decided to take a photo from the hill because it was pretty. I felt like something was watching me. H decided to leave, so I sat down there for a bit. When I went back, I got chased by what I think is a walker or a mimic. It was screaming my name, and it sounded like me, until I heard loud stomps as well. I went back home and looked at the photo. There's something in the tree line staring back at us, but we didn't see it in real life. It's not a person. Nobody can get up there. It was absolutely creepy, and I never went down there since. Please keep this anonymous. Your videos are absolutely amazing, and I hope you're okay after going into the woods and seeing the cult. Oh, yeah. The cult! That's terrifying. That does sound like you encountered walker. I think we have time for one more story. This story happened to my partner about a week ago. For regional context, we live in Arizona and my family's in a 2-story house. This takes place in one of the front bedrooms on the 2nd floor. It was around midnight, maybe 1 in the morning. I don't remember for sure. I know it was around then. Them back leaned against the front-facing window and me facing towards them. There was a decent amount of space between us as our around 8-month-old kitten Roman was sprawled out between us. Initially, the only noises that could be heard was the kitten between us purring happily, the ceiling fan spinning, and the faint sound of the wind outside, and us talking about whatever we were talking about. Suddenly, this cat stopped purring and opened its eyes. Everyone was completely silent. We then hear the sound of right outside of our window that sounds like a howling cat. The howling cat sounds after about 10 minutes, pauses before continuing again in the same pattern. My partner and I were shocked. My partner considers looking outside as it sounded right outside the window. We were on the 2nd floor, as I previously stated, but after I looked at them and said absolutely not, I want no part in whatever the hell is out there, they quickly considered otherwise. After about, I want to say 3 minutes, it would stop and go back to the way it was, but my partner and I would still remain validly freaked out. I have no idea what it was, but I've continued to think back to it since the night it happened. I don't think I've ever been more glad to have curtains in a room ever. Wishing you a good night. Yep, that will in fact do it. You handled that very well. And from what you said, I mean, I feel like it didn't happen again, right? Or you would have included it in the story. Ignoring it really does work. Anyways, that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you tomorrow.